All right, guys, we're back. Another episode of the Fiddler's Pursuit of Freedom podcast. And today's guest is out of Flagstaff, Arizona. He's been in real estate just a handful of years and making big moves. And so I wanted to bring him on, kind of learn from his experiences because aside from the many people I've had on, he's in new builds. And a lot of people have questions about new builds. So we're going to talk about that. And a couple of his other projects, manufactured homes, and a little bit about rehabs, but that's not his forte. But welcome, Matt Peace with Axxo Properties.
How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on today.
Axxo Properties or Axxo Development?
Axxo Development Group.
Development, that's what it was. Sorry about that. All right. So you're in Flagstaff, northern Arizona, mountain town. People don't think of snow and trees, but that's Flagstaff.
That is Flagstaff. It's cold. It's different. It's different than any other part of Arizona.
Yeah. A little bit of a niche market, I would say, kind of hard to get into, and so you had to figure something else out besides the typical rehabs, like all of us.
It is, yeah. It's a different market. It's an expensive market.
Yeah. So you like building?
Love building. Been building for a few years, and it's just, I've done the rehabs and everything else, but the building is where I've got a lot more control over the projects, price points, and the costs throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
Let me make sure my volume's off on the computer so we don't get all these messages. So I guess my biggest questions, because I haven't built yet, and many of the people I know haven't built yet, but aside from acquiring the land, what would you say is some hurdles you had to get through when getting into building? Is the city a pain in the butt? Ever had to rezone? Anything like that? Just kind of step us through the basics of development or building.
Sure. So it's very similar to a flip, except everything. Obviously, you've got to go through the permitting process. So you've got to be, a few steps ahead, while you're acquiring with, making sure you've got the right draftspeople. Plans, takes a good amount of time between the plans and permits. You could be 2.5 months in before you're even getting started on the project. So when it comes to that, I actually like to start those ahead of time. I've got a handful of plans that I already have owned and designed and have built a couple times on other properties, so that saves some time. But getting through the process to build, I would say, is the biggest hurdle, just with the sheer loss of time.
Yeah. And I know we kind of spoke on it just briefly here, but you're, like I was saying, you're in a niche market, and you went into building because you're not necessarily a fan of rehab for one of two reasons from our discussions in the past. Is not always the inventory of distressed properties low, but you just prefer building. Is there any reason per se?
It's cheaper. I can build a brand new house cheaper than I can buy and renovate a house in this market. Buying the distressed properties versus buying the land and then ripping them down to the studs or as far as we're going to go on it. I can do it cheaper and get a better end product just by starting from scratch and doing it on my own. And that's not to say that land is easy to find here. Land is very hard to find here. A lot of it you got to find off market. There's very few listings that land's available. We're kind of landlocked with national forest around here, and everything's pretty much built. But we've been able to get lots and land, and it's been working so far.
Nice. And previous conversations, you're working with the university now, or in student housing, or the future goals, anyways.
Yeah, so we've got a project, and we're going to be doing it by the university. It's only going to be 12 bedrooms. It's on a small piece of land, but it borders the university, and it's going to be used for housing international students. But the location's what's key on this. It's in a neighborhood. It's got mixed stuff. You've got some apartments. You've got some smaller student housing, duplexes, single family homes. So we're going to be wiping out a single family home and building vertical.
Yeah. And that lot's already been purchased, right?
Yeah, it's got a house on it. We've got a renter in the house right now while we're going through the design and development on it. And that one's going to be a lot more of a political process because the neighborhood that it's in they're fighting back against people building things like this there.
Yeah.
But it's what makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense there. And it'll be a good cash flowing property.
Mm-hmm. And I remember from the beginning, and just as a precursor, me and Matt, we've known each other for quite some time. And I guess we should have stepped on this in the beginning. But when I got my realtor license in Flagstaff, I repped you on owner finance land lot, and you built your first house cash.
Yep.
And since then, you've realized the power of leverage, and you've got in some equity partners, and you've been able to bring in some private money to build fast. I mean, the last time we spoke, I mean, I was like, holy crap, this guy's building way more things than I had originally thought. But,
sure. No, I think it was more than one you did when you were here in town. I think it was 2 owner finance deals. You got me on the commercial property.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was owner finance.
Some extensive rehabs on that. I still own that one. And then the vacant lot. But that's what really piqued my interest, was starting that process a few years ago.
Yeah.
And just seeing what's possible. You know, I'm not a contractor. I don't have a contractor's license. I use contractors on all these projects, you know, to make everything legal. I've got everybody involved that we need to. And just, I know the inside and outs of these houses from the ground up. And it's a lot more rewarding in the end to be able to start from the ground and go up versus taking the existing shells that are there, and none of which I like. We end up rearranging them most of the time. But, you know, we've still got a handful of flips we're working on at the same time that we're getting these new constructions off the ground and starting.
Yeah. And, well, I had a couple questions there, but I don't know which one to go with. So, your first one, well, the reason I brought up me being the realtor is because now I can tell people, because when people ask me about my experience, I'm like, well, I've done residential real estate, I've done commercial, I've done land, and I've done owner finance deals. So I'm like, yeah, I've got a rounded realtor career. But a lot of people don't know about the 2-year tax deferment or tax. You explain it better. You've been living in your taxable house.
Tax-free money.
Yeah, that's
tax-free money.
Tax-free.
You know, as a married couple, you can claim up to $500,000 every 2 years on your primary. You know, I see a lot of these people out there talking about how your home is not a good asset, don't own your own house, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I disagree with it completely. I've built a lot of equity in all my houses by building them. You know, we move exactly every 2 years. So we'll build the house from the ground up, move in it from day one, you know, 100 to 200,000 equity when we move in. And I timed the market just right. The last one I sold at 2 years and 6 days
mm-hmm.
from the certificate of occupancy to when I sold it to the new homeowner.
Nice.
And it worked out perfect.
Yeah.
You know, but doing that every 2 years, that's that extra step. You can get that tax-free money that you're not going to get anywhere else, you know, unless you start utilizing the IRAs and things like that. But it's the easy step. You've got to have the house. If you do it right, you know, my market's different than a lot of markets. It might not work as good other places. If you can't have the significant amount of equity when you move in,
mm-hmm.
you know, it doesn't make sense. But with my cost to build up here and everything else, it makes a lot of sense. And we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. And every time I talk to McMahon, he started building houses, but it's a different world where I'm at. Expensive land, cheap houses, comparatively to the Flagstaff market.
I wish I could buy houses at the price you guys buy them out there.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got to mold around their
absolutely. Our double wides are the price of your mansions over there.
Yeah. Well, you brought it up, so let's talk about your last couple projects aside from your new builds.
Okay. So I've got, we started doing just this year, buying old trailers within established neighborhoods that are zoned for manufactured housing, things like that. We're taking the trailers off, ordering brand new units, cleaning up the yards, fences, dropping the new units on there and selling them. We're on our second one right now. We just started probably about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
We got the first one under contract after 12 hours on the market. I think that one's $259,000 for the double wide is what we're selling them for.
Yeah, that's crazy. You double wide here, max is like 130, and you got to be on the country, and you won't.
Yeah, this is on a 6,000 square foot lot.
Yeah. Well, give us numbers, man. What are you making on those two?
Yeah. So, you know, that one that we're talking about right there.
We'll just say it's big. We'll just leave it at that. It's more than a lot of people make on flips.
It's more than I make on flips.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know, and
quite amazing.
The amount of work that goes in. The biggest thing is finding them.
Yep.
Because when you're buying it from somebody at the price point we're buying them from, they can't relocate for that because you can't buy anything for what they're getting out of the properties.
Yeah.
You know, the last one we had, I think we had 14 40-yard roll-offs come in there, an excavator out there for a couple of days just tearing it apart. And then from there, it's just a matter of getting the unit on site. We built a good relationship, and we're able to get these units delivered, you know, from start to finish, about 45 days. And then in the meantime, it's just setting up the utilities, permitting, things like that.
Yep.
And then when it's there, the house is done. All we got to do is add a deck, a couple light fixtures, clean up the yard, and it's good to go.
Yeah, and these properties, he's been putting them on Facebook, but these aren't nice single wides or nice structure. We're tearing down. We're tearing down eyesores, dilapidated, just city code violation list this long. I mean, these are houses that need to have been demoed, and the neighbors love them. Yeah, no, the last one we got had county health violations. The county attorney was involved with everything. It had tax liens. Out here, you can purchase tax liens, and then you got to hold them for a couple of years, and then you can start the foreclosure process on the tax liens. And this particular one had tax liens that were the owner of those liens. It was, I'm trying to remember, $5,000 to $8,000 somewhere in there in tax liens for back taxes. Somebody owned them. They'd been trying to foreclose on it, and were never able to serve him properly. And we were able to sneak in right at that time that they were trying to serve those immediately of the property to stop their foreclosure. Yeah. We had a little bit of breaking connection there, but I think we caught it all. Still recording. So we got new builds, not so much a fan of rehabs. You've got your manufactured homes you like doing. There's a lot going on. You know, how did you build your team to be able to manage these? And we'll kind of try to incorporate it with you also own another business that has been taking up 100 hours of your week, and you've been able to kind of step aside from that. And so I guess the question there is, you know, how did you build your team? How did you get yourself out of the other business to, you know, concentrate on something that you love more than your other one? Sure. You know, the other business I've been doing it for 15 years. You know, the business is great, and it just that took just finding the right team to be able to be in there, to run it, to manage it, so that I could step away, because you're right, it was occupying a lot of my time. Even in doing the real estate, you know, it would still take, you know, a full week getting stuff done over there, plus a full week, you know, nights and weekends doing the other stuff. And quite some time ago, I was able to get the right people involved to just help me run it. So it's still there, it's still cash flowing, doing great, to where all I've been doing is just real estate 24/7. Yeah. And then with the real estate, the team, that's the hardest thing to build in the new construction. You know, we're in a building boom out here. It's not like anything I've seen. I was born and raised here. I've been here a long time. And every trade that's here is just booked. They're too busy to get anything done. We've got apartments going up left and right, you know, growth like we've never seen here. So the team I built, it's about the loyalty and, you know, the amount of work that we give them going from project to project, and paying the bills on time. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't string people out. They get it done. We pay them right away. You know, when the next project comes, they're always willing to make room for us. And that took years to get that right team in place, of replacing this trade with another one and things like that to get it correct. Yeah. But now that the team's established, you know, it works great. I mean, I've got a full-time crew that works on our flips. They go from flip to flip, working on that stuff, just start to finish. And then we've got our, you know, the new construction is less like a flip where you're trying to manage individual people. Mm-hmm. Versus the way we do flips is we just get our own team in there. They do all the work. Yeah. And then the new construction is just hiring the trades, you know, your plumbers, your electricians, just as a whole, as a company, hiring all the companies to get that end of it done. Yeah. And it's less management on site needed versus doing the flips, I think. Yeah. No, so, I mean, it sounds like I was gonna say it sounds like, just based off of our phone conversations, that the rehabs are, 2 times as much stress as these new builds, and just I've been out there looking at them. It's got to be the reward at the end is, oh, look what I built,
Right.
versus this. I turned a shitty house into a pretty house, and you took dirt and turned it into a structure. That's got to be more rewarding.
It is, because I got to design it from the beginning. I got to look at the lot and the plot plans and, decide what I want to build there. Look at the market. I never built the biggest house in the neighborhood. I never built the nicest house in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be right in the middle where everybody can afford them. The new ones we're doing are going to be 600 plus sales points just because they're going to be closer to the hospital, and little nicer houses, little bigger houses, but it's just the location on those versus some of the other ones that I'm doing around 4 to 450.
Yeah, and the past couple have been pretty unique. Not only is it a different strategy building, but you're also beginning the strategy in a mountain community, and your current build is on the side of a 30-degree angle cliffside.
It's ridiculous, and it was a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. Everything out here, the flat lots are gone; they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They've all been built on because they're prime lots. So what we've got left is the side of, hillsides, rock faces, you name it. And the one I've got, which is actually just right up behind my house here, it's one of the steepest properties I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to cut the house in, to the side of the hill, keep it from falling off, cutting into the rock, pinning into the rock.
Yep.
The big reward on this property is it's a half acre right in the middle of a neighborhood. The backyard is just nothing but trees. You see a mesa, and then we put this just massive deck on the back, which was one of the biggest challenges on that whole thing because we've got these steel, 25-foot posts that are anchored into the hillside, going up to support the deck that's 35 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
But now that it's done, it's great, but there's no parking. There's no way to get to the house. So we had to build the driveway up, I don't know, probably 25 feet.
Yeah.
Build a bridge from the driveway to get into the house, and now that it's done, it's great. I mean, this thing's, it's been pretty much pre-sold. I've had somebody looking at it throughout the entire process. There's a good chance I'm not even going to have to put it on the market.
Yeah. Well, that's been a pretty common theme for you, though. I mean, from what I remember and recall, I mean, most of yours either pre-sold or sold within hours, right?
Right. And that's
it's just so.
A lot of people know what we're doing, and they reach out to find out what we have coming up.
Yep.
It's definitely a seller's market out here. So when people know what we're doing and they call, they can get access to come into the houses before we even start showing them. The last flip we did, we sold it 2 days after we bought it. During the demo phase, somebody walked in, bought the house right then, and then we spent the next 2 months finishing the rehab, and they closed on it at the end.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
the kind of market we're in here. Especially, the price points are all determine that a lot too, but there's just not enough inventory for the people that are looking.
Right. Kind of want to get back into the build process. What kind of obstacles did you run into or hurdles where you're like, man, this is something different. It's not like these easy rehabs. I feel like some of the trades are obviously going to be the same, but city might be a pain, or just any obstacles that you ran into, or is it just easy peasy?
It's not that it's easy. It's all routine now because I'm familiar with it. But I would say the least amount of fun is dealing with municipalities. Getting the plans approved, between the red lines, getting things fixed, engineering. We've got soil issues out here. We've had to get, we do soil testing, things like that. And some of the new ones, we're going to have to start using post-tension slabs, to keep everything from cracking because we've got a lot of expensive clay out here.
Yep.
So the engineering, the extra time, the extra cost, and then just the headache of the city. We haven't gone through and had to rezone anything yet. I try to buy things based off of zoning. The multifamily student housing we're going to be doing, it's zoned according for it, even though there's a house on it.
Yeah.
It's actually zoned for high density residential, which is the only reason we bought the property.
Yeah.
So we haven't dealt with that, but we've got some other ones that we're working on and looking into right now that would require some rezoning. to do multifamily on a single family area.
Yeah. What do you think the future holds for Axxo? Future plans as far as expansion? You plan on getting out and expanding into other cities, or getting or pushing more into new builds, or going to the multifamily, more commercial?
So it's going to be a mix of everything. We're absolutely going to be expanding, going into other cities. So our next step, which is going to start later this year, is going to be multifamily. It's not going to be here in town. We want to buy the Class Cs, do the renovations per unit, raise the rents, change the rent rolls, turn them in, buying Class Cs in a B class area, getting them up to par where they need to be, rents where they're supposed to be, basically doing the value adds on multifamily, small apartments, things like that.
Right.
And reselling them, or depending on what kind of cap rates, we can turn them into just, long-term holds on them.
Right.
So that we're going to keep doing the new constructions. I'd say we're going to be done with flips this year, as far as just rehabs, doing the single family, new constructions, and then straight to the multifamily.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's not that it gets boring doing the single family homes. It's just, it's not where we want to be anymore. And we're looking to scale up to the next level.
Yeah, nice. And we've touched on it before, but you've been raising money for this, and it's been somewhat of somewhat easy. You built these relationships with people in your community, and they've been trusting you so much that you haven't had an issue. Every time you find a property, you found the money. It's
I found that to be the case. It's everybody will loan money based off of the right deal. The deal, it's not, we do have a track record. We've proven that we know what we're doing and we can pull it off. But the fact of the matter is, if the deal's there, the money's easy to find. But the relationships we have done, we've got, between private lenders, with just individuals, to some of the hard money guys that we get good rates with and everything else, it has not been a problem to this point. And, the relationships are great, and we're always trying to bring in more. For some of the bigger deals, we put a lot of our own cash in these deals. And we're trying to get out of putting so much into them. I mean, we've got a few that we've got zero out of pocket in. But for the most part, we try to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
But looking to step up to the bigger, multi-million-dollar multifamily projects is where we're going to be taking those relationships we've already built and then adding new ones to it.
Well, I bring it up again because, I'm not sure where my audience base is going to be yet, but I can only anticipate, just like me, I learned a lot of what I know through podcasting. And so I anticipate a lot of newbies being curious about the money aspect. And that was my problem in the beginning. It was the fear of contracting something and not being able to find the money. But, once you build those relationships and they can see they like and trust you, the money, it's always going to be something that's, forefront of your mind, but it shouldn't be as scary as people think. And
that's why, back in the beginning, like you were mentioning, the money was a thing. When we got started, it's like, where do we pull this off? And that's why the first deals I did, I had them carry it back for me.
Yeah.
It happened to work out on the first two deals I did. The owner was willing to carry them for a couple of years. Ended up refinancing out as soon as the deals were done. But that was one of the easiest ways for me to get started with it. Mm-hmm. And to build the equity so that I've got a better position on my end. If you go in and you've got nothing to offer, no experience, it's going to be more challenging to find somebody that's going to trust you with their money.
Right.
Unless you just got a slam dunk of a deal or something that you can cross collateralize, something else with equity in it, things like that. Thankfully, I've had the other business. I've had the cash flow from that. I've got the backing on that end, but I didn't need it in the beginning because of the owner finance deals. But it's worked out so far.
Yeah, and we're almost 6 years since the very first deal, or 5, something like that.
That's about right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome because the first flip was that single family with the cool little awning over the top of the roof, right? Or was it the new build that was the first one?
Cool awning over the roof.
The one I came over like in the middle of the night, help you paint the deck, and stuff on the inside.
Was that like the manufacturer or the?
Yeah, the manufactured one with the addition and the roof over the
Yeah,
top.
that was a funky house.
Yeah. Well, they do that out there because of the snow. It's too heavy for those manufactured homes to handle.
That's right. They built that roof over the top of the other roof.
It's amazing the things you see out there.
It's common out here though for those older trailers. But see, those are the ones now. That one I bought and I flipped it up, or I flipped it.
Yeah.
And nowadays I just buy those and run an excavator through it, throw in a dumpster, and then put something brand new on there. But I think that was my first actual flip.
Yeah.
Was that one, and did all the work myself. 30 days in and out. Just making it as good as it could.
Yeah.
It wasn't that great, but it was definitely a lot better when I was done with it.
Yeah. And while we're talking about newbies, I don't remember the details in full, but the way you acquired that was pretty unique as well. Do you recall how you got that? Because it's something, because it wasn't just a straight, here, Mr. Homeowner, here's my cash, let's make a deal.
It was completely different from that.
Yeah, because a lot of newbies are like, man, I don't know how I can do this. Where am I going to find the lead? I find the lead, where I get the money. And
the lead and the money came from the same place on this particular deal.
Yeah.
So I happen to know, so they had a private mortgage on it through an individual versus a bank. I happen to know the individual that held the mortgage, and he contacted me. I was doing, I think he was a neighbor, or he owned one of the neighboring properties around my house. So I talked to him a few times. And one day he had just mentioned that he's got this property that the owner of it, he had it owner financed through, wasn't paying the thing, hadn't paid him in 2 years.
Wow.
And so he was starting the foreclosure process. He said he was going to send it to auction unless he found something to do with it. And he asked if I'd be willing to take over the note on it and just take the property back. So we ended up talking to the owner who was living in it. I can't remember the exact sequence of events, but he ended up handing it back over to him, who then transferred the note to me. And I got in it with zero out of pocket on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he held the note. I provided the money for the flip. I think I put $5,000 into that house, all in total, doing all the work myself.
Really?
But yeah, it was definitely a unique scenario. But I could see it happening, if you look hard enough to find something like that.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it up because, again, newbies are always either gun-ho on the hard money or, certain strategy, but with the relationships and the creative thinking, you were able to pull off a flip. I don't recall how much money you made, but I'm sure it was enough to where you had a successful transaction. And
it was in the green, let's put it that way. But it wasn't that great, but it was in the green, so it gave me enough confidence to keep going.
Yeah, and here we are.
It was a blast. Even if I had lost money on that deal, I would have kept going anyways.
Yeah.
That doesn't deter me. So the fact that I made some money on that cheap little deal actually worked out.
Yeah. And I remember when I got my first flip, me and you were talking, I'm like, man, I just need a deal. I don't care if I lose money. I just want to learn. I want to get a deal done. And I don't know if that's the good or bad mindset, but I think newbies need to realize that, real estate ain't a walk in the park. And I've got that hashtag HGTV said it was easy. And it's not easy, but it's a blast. And I took on that house. I knew my numbers. I had my numbers verified. But in my mind, I was like, man, I'm doing this to learn. I'm not here to make a home run. I want to learn and just get one of these things on my belt. And ever since then, haven't looked back. But I think a lot of newbies just the fear of anything, fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknowns stop them. But with your relationships and your creative thinking,
it's not even that. But everybody's going to fail. If you don't fail, you're not learning.
Yeah.
So you've got to go through that. Because trust me, I may have not failed in that end, but I failed in many other ventures and things that I've tried to do. And if you stop, you're just the same as everybody else. It's when you keep going that you can actually make something of it.
Yeah. It's just a little stepping stone. And I had an interview with the guy here locally, same situation. Ended up losing a little bit of money, but he's like, you know what? I learned so much from that one. I'll never make that same mistake again. And so it's always something you learn from.
Exactly.
But all right, man. Down in my show notes, I'll put contact information. But what way would be the best way for these people to contact you, via email or Facebook, or what would you?
Look me up on Facebook, and then let's see. I've got the email. It's going to be Matt at Axxo. You know what? I just changed that.
Well, you can get it to me at the end, but I'll just stat you down at the bottom. Yeah,
I'll get that to you at the end. I've got one. It's Matt at Rock Juniper, which is our investment company. Mm-hmm. So it's Matt at rockjuniper.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. Been longtime friends. Eventually, we'll work on something together.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of state deal.
Yeah. Cool, man.
I appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot.